y dos, y dos, una, y dos, una, y dos.
Hello and welcome to Cortes NYC Livestream, the podcast. This is a bi-weekly show broadcasting out of New York City. We are your hosts, Cortes NYC.
And Carla de Puerto Rico.
And on this show, we talk about art, creativity, city life from a Latino perspective. I'm a visual artist.
And I'm a singer. So let's get on with the show.
This is episode 5, titled Freestyle. In Art Life, our first section, we're going to be speaking about drawing from your imagination.
And on Cultural Talk, we're going to be talking about different styles of Latino music.
And as always at the end,
we're going to be hablando español.
Speaking Spanish. All right, let's get on with it. All right, the freestyle. Defining the freestyle and what is drawing from imagination is what this is all about.
Mm-hmm.
Freestyling is something that is usually associated with rapping, being a rapper, and spitting lyrics off the top of your head. Improvisation in Latino music, what do you call it?
Improvisación. Trovadores.
Trovadores do that, right? You hear that also like in salsa music, you know, they do that.
El soneo, the little break they have to say whatever they have to say, yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, like jazz musicians, they've always improvised. They kind of put that on the map, right? They're the cliche for that in the music world, where they'll just take a basic melody and start to play with it and alter it and make it their own and turn it into a whole different piece of music, but then go back to the original source. So what do you need in order to draw from your imagination, to freestyle, to get something out there like that? When I'm drawing, and when I started freestyling, you know, defining it as freestyling, I was doing outlines of my lettering. And I remember that people would be curious, like, oh, how'd you do that if you just kind of came up with letters on your own without even sketching it with pencil first or anything like that? And I didn't think it was a big deal, but then I realized a lot of people don't do that or are afraid to do that. And then I realized, oh shit, I'm actually freestyling. I'm actually putting together lettering off the top of my head. I'm inventing a composition of lettering. Also, when I was in junior high school, I used to sketch characters, and there was kids, you know, I mean, I'm sure you guys, artists out there, are familiar with that. When you're in junior high school or elementary school and somebody wants you to draw, and you see that there's some kids that can only draw if they're drawing from a photograph or a comic book or something. I was the kid that would draw from my imagination. So I didn't sit there and copy anything. I would just draw from my imagination. And I just had that ability to do that. It's only when I became older that I realized that it's an actual skill. And that's what we're talking about right now. How do you develop that skill? How do you build up that memory muscle so that you can freestyle something off the top of your head? My first bit of advice would be that it's all about memory. So your first thing is to have a clear mind. You have to have an open mind and take in information. So when you're walking around, whatever it is, wherever you're, I mean, in a previous episode, we talked about getting
inspired.
So we don't have to go over that again. But once you've gotten inspired and once you've taken all this stuff in, memorizing it, how to retain it in your head.
Yeah, like don't forget it.
Yeah. I think that just happens naturally for some of us. There's certain subjects that we like, that we're going to retain the information. And those are the things that probably you like to draw. Like, for example, if I was fascinated by anatomy, then when I'm studying anatomy, I'm going to retain where the muscles are, where the let's say the skeletal system, like the skull and the bones, and what does that look like? What does the muscle look like? And I'm going to recall it when I want to draw. I'm going to like try to sketch it out and get that information out on the paper. If I like lettering, I'm going to remember the shapes of the letters. I'm going to remember the serifs and the bolder portions of it. I'm going to remember if I like graffiti art, I'm going to remember how maybe somebody did an arrow or somebody did a 3D, and I'm going to recollect that information and pull it out when I'm drawing. If your memory isn't that good and you don't have that photographic memory, then the best thing you could do is to study. Think of yourself as almost like a doctor, like a researcher, like an archaeologist. An archaeologist, that's the best example, an archaeologist. You're trying to find all these little gems. You're trying to go online and look for all this information and go through books and all that, but retain it, study it, learn how it works. Just seeing the photo isn't enough sometimes. Sometimes you have to actually find out how things work, because that's going to make it stay in your head. So if you like drawing cars, don't just draw a car superficially. Study cars. Study why are the cars built the way they are? What is it? What are the different models that have been built along the evolution of cars, and why they came up to these designs now that you're looking at? Same thing with, let's say, if you like to draw robots, right? Well, think about, how is that robot constructed? What makes that robot work? What needs to be part of that robot in order for it to make sense that it works? That way, when you start sketching, you're going to sketch something that makes sense, where the parts fit and it looks like, oh yeah, that looks real. That looks like it's something. It's not just a bunch of lines on a piece of paper. If you like to draw buildings, then you need to study some perspective. You need to understand, how does perspective work? You should understand, if you're going to draw buildings, how do buildings work? What's underneath the structure? It sounds like a crazy thing to do, but how many stories tall is the average building?
Yeah, so it can look realistic, right?
Yeah. How tall are the windows? How tall are the windows compared to a person? Or the floor? How tall is the floor compared to a person? And then that way you get perspective on how big should the windows be and how big should a person be standing next to it. What else? Animals. If you like to draw animals, if you like to draw cats or dogs or pets, more than likely you have one then. Because a lot of people that like to draw animals have pets, right? But if you do have an animal or a pet, I'm sure that the reason you like drawing it is because it's in your head all the time, right? You're always worrying about petting them and all that. You're using your hands to pet them, and you can tell a lot about them even by holding animals, right? By holding your dog or holding your cat, you can tell how much they weigh. You can see the size of their paws. You get a sense of you're studying them, That's what helps you to be able to draw them off the top of your head in your imagination. Now, more difficult, somebody out there is probably raising their hand saying, ooh, me. Yes, if you're drawing things that are fantasy, that's when it becomes a problem, right? So it's easy when I'm drawing my cat or my dog, he's on my lap. Carla, you never had a dragon, I'm sure, right? You never had
dragon?
A pet dragon? You're not the Khaleesi, are you?
Actually, when I was little, my dad gave me as a gift a dragon, or a very weird animal. It was almost like a Godzilla that he had given to my brother, but I don't know what happened. It ended up with me, and I was just little. I was maybe, I don't know, like 1 or 2, and that was my gift.
Was it a statue?
It was kind of like a toy.
All right, so if you want to draw things from your imagination, obviously you're not going to have a dragon or a werewolf or a vampire in front of you, right? So you're going to have to figure out how to make these things come to life in your imagination before you could even sketch them from your imagination. So if you like dragons, step number 1 is think, why do you like dragons? Do you like dragons because they're large? Do you like dragons because they're reptilian? Do you like them because they fly, because they have wings? Think about these things, right? Because they breathe fire. And then you have to study those things. If you like them because they breathe fire, you have to study fire. Go and look at video clips of fire or, flames. Maybe look up flamethrowers. There's a lot of photos. If you Google search flamethrowers, you'll find photos of flamethrowers. And you'll see how the fire flickers and how the wave of the flame looks. If you like reptilian elements of the dragons, then look up iguanas, look up chameleons, look up, giant lizards and that kind of stuff, and study how is their anatomy, how are they built, how do they walk. Look up video clips of iguanas walking or reptiles walking. All that studying is gonna stay in your head, and then you're gonna become the expert dragon sketcher, drawer, artist. That's where you start to develop that. If you wanted to draw, let's say, for example, some other fantasy element, let's say, I said werewolf. Werewolf, obviously, you would study wolves and dogs and things like that, and that would help you.
Maybe like a fairy.
A fairy, yeah. So if you like drawing, let's say, fairies, right? Little trolls and fairies and those kind of fantasy creatures. Then you're going to look at, for a fairy, I would say you want to look at ballerinas. You want to look at dancers. You want to study dancers, see their poses. Because what fairies are known for, if they're little flying around fairies with little wings, is for being very graceful and looking like they're floating in air, swimming. They always have very elegant poses and stuff like that. So that's where you would get your reference, your point of reference is probably dancers, models, things like that. And I guarantee you, if you start studying those things, you start looking for photos and videos and things like that, you're gonna end up getting that stuff in your head. And when you sketch, you're gonna recollect that. It's gonna come right out of your head. If you're into landscapes, if you're into open fields or fantasy landscapes, then you're gonna want to study really outrageous photos of places around the earth. Canyons, deserts, volcanoes, environment, natural photographs, like geographic photographs. If you're just because you're going to draw something in fantasy world on the moon or something like that doesn't mean that you have to find a photo on the moon. Look for things on earth that look similar to what you're talking about, and you should be able to recollect some of that information when you're going to draw something out of your imagination. I think this brings me to another point. How you take part of freestyling is taking different pieces and putting it together. So how you take a piece from here, a piece from there, a piece from there, and bring them together into one new idea is another big part of freestyling. The combination of these different elements. So if I gave you 5 photographs and told you combine these into one thing, if I'm giving you the photographs in your hand, you're gonna start taking masking tape and scissors and you're gonna cut them apart and try to put them together somehow. And it's gonna look crazy. It's gonna look like you took 5 photographs, cut them apart, and put them together. The freestyle element is that there's no stronger machine for combining things than your brain. Your imagination is amazing at combining multiple things. It's kind of like when you dream. You know how you have these weird dreams where you combine multiple subjects into one, and you wake up and you go, man, I had a crazy dream last night. Yeah. I was walking a dog and it had wings, and then the dog, turned into my mother, and then
exactly one dream goes into another.
Exactly.
And you have things you don't know how they ended up getting together in just one place.
That ability, the ability to combine multiple things, is something that musicians do and visual artists do all the time. You're taking a piece from here, a piece from there, and your brain just does it. Like, you just train yourself to combine these elements and let it out in one item, right? In one final piece. That's the beauty of the freestyle. The freestyle is you taking all the knowledge that you have, all the different pieces, whether it's a little bit of a dragon, a little bit of a lizard, a little bit of a this, a little bit of a that, and then you, in your brain, you combine it and you start sketching it out, and then you accept it as a new item on your paper. So that's another part of a freestyle. I think when I'm doing lettering, I'll use the lettering as an example. I'll take a piece of a letter from here, a piece of a letter from there. Sometimes I'll see like a letter E and I flip it 90 degrees to the left and it turns into a W. And I'm like, yeah, that could make like a good W if I turn it around like this and make a W out of that. Or then I'll see like a little shape. Sometimes I'll see like a little claw-looking shape, or a little something that looks like a shard of a piece of glass. And I'm like, wow, that would make an interesting piece for the letter if I just did a little shape like that at the tip. And then I add that to that, and I combine these pieces together. Sometimes there's a certain line, like when I'm freestyling, I'll just sketch lightly some long strokes of a movement, and that movement will direct me into how to complete the rest of the lettering. And I'll try to follow along with that initial piece that I put down and say, what would combine well with that? But obviously I'm bringing them from my imagination. I'm taking this out of my memory. So these are the important things: building up your knowledge, reference, study how the anatomy works, how lettering works, how landscapes work, all this stuff.
Will you say that also going into observation, maybe workshop, when you go and you draw in a place, you have a model and then you draw them from observation, then
Figure drawing.
figure drawing. So then doing that a lot can also help your brain to develop a memory from that shape, right? From
Yes.
those.
I would agree with you on that. Yes. So if you've never done it, if we're talking about visual art and you've never done this before, figure drawing is very important. Drawing from direct observation is important for drawing from your imagination. That also helps to it helps to distinguish in your mind what mode do you go in when you're drawing with your eyes visually from something that's in front of you in reality, and drawing from your imagination, something that's in your memory. And the more that you practice drawing what's in front of you, obviously in contrast, the better you're going to get at the other side, drawing something from your memory. So you don't have to be in a figure drawing class. You can just maybe draw your boyfriend, your girlfriend, draw a friend if you don't have somebody in your in your life right now. Draw a friend, draw a family, draw your mom, draw your sister, your brother, whoever. But I think that's an easy way of trying to train your brain to see what's really in front of you, and then in contrast, when you're alone, you can sit down and sketch out of your imagination.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, then do still lifes. That's another thing. That's another element here of studying is play, toys, little figures, all the little figurines, the little collectibles. If you're into that can kind of help also. If you'd like to draw fantasy items and you collect toys or you collect little figurines or little sculptures, letting your imagination play and seeing a figure in front of you, maybe putting it with a certain lighting and sketching it, even if it's just quick sketches, you start to study it. And sometimes we look at a figurine for face value and we just say, oh, it's a cool figure because let's say it's Darth Vader. Oh, look, it's a Darth Vader statue. Wow, it's so cool. But you don't really look at what makes Darth Vader until you study it and you sketch it. Then you start looking at the clothing, the helmet, the shape of the helmet, the detail on the helmet, all that stuff, and that stays in your head as you're sketching it. And then when you go to draw from your imagination, it's in your head. So that helps also. That's another subject, and that'll be a follow-up subject, is drawing from observation. But
we'll talk about it on the next episode.
Yeah, but that's helpful too. Another thing, just drawing from imagination that helps. That's helped me in the past. Music, for me, and this is specifically talking about drawing. And I've heard the other way around. I've heard musicians tell me that they get inspiration from visual art. So I've had musicians tell me in the past, when I see your painting, I get inspired, I get ideas, right? Well, I get ideas from music. When I put on some music, close my eyes, let my imagination wander, pictures come into my head. That's just the way I'm built. I don't know if it works for everybody, but for me, that really works. I think when I listen to music, I think about what's the atmosphere in the music, what's the mood, what's the space, what's the tempo, is it making me think fast, slow, and I start to get pictures in my head of a scene, you know what I mean? That helps a lot to loosen up the imagination and draw from your imagination. I think books might help if you read articles or you read books, fiction books. That might help also. That might help to fuel your imagination, then help you draw from your imagination. Because 90% of drawing is what's in your head. Mm-hmm. It's not can you draw. It's really can you draw an idea in your head and then get it out. Yeah. Because I'm sure that if you're drawing, everybody has their own style. I don't think you have to be a great artist or illustrator to draw. Right? I think when everybody starts, we start off really rough, right? We don't know what we're doing. And our illustration style might not be perfect. So the problem isn't for a lot of people, they say, oh, I can't draw from imagination because I can't draw. No, you can draw. You just are not allowing yourself to gather your thought and make that one thought come to life. We have some music in the background going on right now as we talk, and I'm sure if I sat here and just stayed quiet for a second.
Think about what is the music telling you.
Exactly. It would kind of give you some hints and some clues and steer you in certain ways. So that helps. For me, music helps. It helps
I
my
think-
train of thought a
Mhm.
lot.
I think movies too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, in movies you get the actual visual, so then I guess you get the idea in your head
And yeah.
in order for you to create your own. But you can use it as reference and start with that and then create something else.
That's true. Another thing about drawing from imagination, I take a few seconds to really think, what do I want to draw and what am I drawing? And then I think, is this going to be a poster? Is this going to be a small study of something, like a part, just a piece of something? Or is it going to be a whole poster, a finished composition with figures and backgrounds and everything? Sometimes when you're drawing from imagination, you're afraid to dictate what are you going to draw. You know, are you trying to complete an entire piece, you know, the whole page? You're going to fill the whole page with a background and this and that? Or are you just curious about drawing an eyeball and you're just going to sketch an eye? You know what I mean? It's just an anatomy sketch. It's just a few sketches. Maybe I'm going to sketch a hand. Maybe I'm going to sketch part of a face. And that also makes people stop sometimes because they feel like they start sketching, they start to do a smile and then a nose and part of a face, and then they ran out of space on the paper. And they were like, I wasn't thinking. Or they start to draw like some superhero character or something, and then they end up with half the body off the page and the other half is not there. And then you have an entire other side blank. And they're like, man, I can't draw. I don't know why I can't draw. And it's because they're not thinking of the entire page and what are you drawing? What are you trying to bring to life? Is this just a study session where you're just going to sketch a piece of something? Or are you trying to do a complete composition where you should really consider that the figure is just a portion of the illustration, and then you got to consider the rest of the illustration as well, and sketch out everything a little bit at a time? That's another part of it. I think a lot of people start sketching from imagination and then stop the minute that they realize that they didn't realize what they were doing. They get scared of themselves. They're like, what am I drawing? I don't know what I'm drawing. And that scares people sometimes. So I think it's good to have your expectations set and to have a vision of what is it why are you drawing from your imagination? Sometimes when you're drawing for a project, like if I've done stuff where I've illustrated, let's say for a poster or a painting or something, and somebody's hiring me to do an illustration, and I'm doing thumbnails. Now, thumbnails are going to be from my imagination because nothing exists yet, and I have to think of what am I drawing. So I know that my thumbnail sketches, the small sketches, are going to be compositional sketches. I'm not going to try to get real detailed. I'm not going to worry about the hair on the person's head or like what are they wearing, what kind of coat. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to do a rough sketch of the whole concept and do a lot of rough layouts. That's drawing from my imagination, but it's not to completion. It's just a bunch of little doodles. That's different, and that is when you know your expectations, you accomplish something much bigger at the end. You can draw from your imagination, and then after you have your roughs and your idea, you can look for more reference to back up your imagination, because you're not going to know everything about everything. So you're going to look for the reference, and you're going to start to do more sketches to study how is this thing built. Like if I'm doing a sketch, if somebody's hiring me to do a painting of a castle, and I don't know what castles look like, well, first I'm going to worry about my sketches and my layouts for the composition as a complete thing, and then I'll worry about getting reference of castles and how do the stones look and how do the edges look, what kind of windows does the castle have, and I'll start to sketch those things into it, and using more reference for, to get that together. But the imagination part was the beginning, where you start to get your initial view. Where do you see this castle? Are you from above, from below? Are you from inside the castle looking up? Are you from above the castle looking down? That's where they hire you to be creative and to think about the picture of this castle before you even get any reference of an actual castle. So I think that we kind of
covered a lot.
Yeah, we covered a lot. Drawing from imagination, but did not stop. We went straight through it. Mm-hmm. You guys, let us know. What do you guys do when you want to draw from imagination, or what's the challenges that you guys find from drawing from imagination? We're speaking visual art mostly. I mean, Carla.
Yeah, I've tried to draw from my imagination, and the only thing that comes out always is a heart and a house. and flowers. That's all I can do. I don't know why. I even tried to draw a face, but all my proportions are bad. It's not good. But if we relate it to music, I guess when you are singing or maybe when you're playing an instrument, you listen to the sound first and then you develop your own idea of the sound, and that's how the sound comes out. So basically it's kind of like drawing from your imagination, but you're playing or singing from what you understand of what you heard, which is, I think, is relatable.
What about when you have a melody in your head from your memory, right?
Yeah.
And then it affects your your psyche, right? Like,
yeah, that's true. Like sometimes you can have a melody in your head. It's stupid. It's a stupid melody. Maybe it's very short. I don't know, very silly, but it cannot leave you alone. So that happens too. And I guess that's how songs are created.
yeah.
It starts with a melody that you cannot take out of your brain, but I think it comes from inspiration from what you heard before. And then you can create something new.
All right, so that wraps up our art talk. If you like what you heard, remember the hashtag on Instagram, Cortesnyc Livestream, hashtag ArtLife. We posted a teaser on there of this podcast. We're going to be launching it pretty soon. Shout out to Anthony Velasquez, Tone Mag, Dr. Caution. We see you.
Thank you for the support always. So guys, get ready. This is our new platform, Cortesnyc Livestream, the podcast.
Si lo estás haciendo todo igual, no tiene ningún color el paso que hace. Separa menos tiempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
And now, on to Culture Talk. My favorite part. This is where Carla does all the work and I get to sit back and just listen. What's the subject this episode?
Listen to me, honey. No, Linda, listen, Linda. Well, today in our cultural talk, we're gonna be talking about different styles of Latino music.
Like genres?
Yes,
Okay.
like different styles. And
Okay.
so I have a lot, but I wanna go like through them by country, maybe like by the Caribbean, then South America, stuff like that. I have different ones.
This is your world. You do you.
Yeah, I'm
Enjoy
gonna
yourself.
do me. Okay, so first we're gonna start with Puerto Rico. Woohoo!
La Isla de Encanto.
Sí, la Isla del Encanto. So some styles that we get from Puerto Rico as Latinos, we have some that are very from the culture of Puerto Rico. So that means that they're mostly more listened to in the island. So like the plena and the bomba. These are styles that has transferred to the United States, but it's more in maybe cultural centers or
Like folk music.
like folk music, yeah.
Gotcha.
But these styles also they can be used as reference for other styles,
Like salsa.
like salsa, like reggaeton too. Sometimes they'll use the drums of plena and bomba. So
plena and bomba, tell me about it a little bit.
yeah, so plena and bomba, basically, like you well said, is folk music from Puerto Rico. Plena was the music that it was used to announce events in the island. So with the music and the drums, you will have somebody that will scream everything and that will say, let's say, the priest is coming to town, or a hurricane is coming, or something's happening. So that was the start of it, but now we use it as part of our music for Christmas and holidays.
So that's plena and
And
then
bomba is the music that we inherit from the slaves in the island. And then they use the bomba and the drums for bomba
So
to
that's
communicate with each other.
Afro-Caribbean stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these are two of folk music of Puerto Rico, and then going into something that we know a little bit more is salsa. So salsa is a little bit complicated to explain because some people say that it came from Puerto Rico, other people say it came from Cuba, but the reality is that I think they mixed all together in New York.
Yeah, they so you had rumba, you had mambo, you had jazz.
Yeah, so these people that they came with their influence from the Caribbean, then they created a mixture with all this that was happening here in the city.
And then eventually in the 70s, disco added on to that, and that added another flavor to it with the compositions, the horns, the violins. The way that they use violins is very disco-y and orchestrated. So, yeah, salsa took on a different take. I mean, you have also salsa, like Latin American salsa from Colombia. Joey Arroyo, who put in a lot of cumbia in there and a lot of Afro rhythms.
That's what I was going to say. Now we have different styles of salsa. We have salsa that is more with the whole orchestra, that you listen to every single instrument. And then we have salsa that is a little bit more connected to the drums and a little bit more connected with the singer. So now we have so many styles that it is interesting how it happened, how it started in a city and then it transferred to the original countries again, and then they created all these new styles of one style.
Yeah. Also, even salsa got used into like a fusion with reggaeton.
Yeah.
Where reggaetoneros started taking some of the salsa inspiration, so that kind of continued the conversation as well, right?
Yeah. That was a salsa con reggaeton. That was an album.
Yeah.
It was a feature a lot of reggaeton artists and a lot of salsa singers from Puerto Rico, I think.
Next?
Yeah. Okay. So next, so then we go into Dominican Republic, and they have the merengue and the bachata.
Yep.
So the merengue is a type of music that I think is pretty recognizable in all Latin America and here in the United States. And it's pretty easy to dance too. So like two steps, and you keep dancing and dancing.
Yeah, left, right.
And then bachata is from Dominican Republic. Nobody can say this is not true. And
Dominicana, se te salió la dominicana.
Yeah,
Wow.
sometimes it happens. Yeah, I'm half Dominican. And so bachata is also, I feel like it's pretty easy to dance, and I like to dance bachata a lot.
Okay.
It's from Dominican Republic.
Some people might not agree.
Yeah, okay. Then I have here cumbia, which cumbia, I have Mexico and Colombia, but I know that there's other Latin Americans, Central America and South America, other countries in that area that they play cumbia. It's different types of cumbia though. I think if you really pay attention and listen to the cumbia from Mexico and the cumbia from Colombia, you can tell the difference.
Yep.
Then I have over here, going into a little bit more for Mexico, the mariachi and the banda, which mariachi, yes. So
Yeah.
mariachi, they usually sings like, they sing boleros, but it's like in a different way because they have a lot of string instruments and the voices are very, it's not loud, but it's bright and it's strong because they don't use a microphone. When mariachis are singing, usually they are just singing their heart out. So that's mariachi. And then banda is funny because I feel like banda is a little bit like country music. And it has a lot from what country music has for the drums and guitars. I think that banda
Country,
has too.
meaning American country music?
Meaning American country music, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I could see that.
I feel like it has...
Tex-Mex.
Yeah, like the Tex-Mex. Exactly. That's what it is. So I feel like it's funny how they are relatable, but these two countries, they hate each other.
Yeah, they
Or
don't
more one country from
the other.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But okay. And then going into the new styles, obviously the reggaeton. Reggaeton, they said it comes from Puerto Rico. It's like a mixture between hip hop, even though it doesn't have a lot of hip hop, but okay, it's a mixture of hip hop, rap, and then like Afro Caribbean
Wait, but you're missing something.
music. What?
It's called reggaeton.
Reggaeton.
It started from reggae. It started from they say it came from Panama, from the Latino.
El General.
Yeah, El General, the Spanish reggae artists that started creating their own little buzz, and then they started reinventing a little bit, and then it became reggaeton.
You're right.
And yeah, then it mixed in with rap and
Yeah.
other things, and people started making a little more hip hop-ish.
Thank you for the insight.
No, hey, we're here to learn.
Thank you. Okay. Then passing into trap is a little bit, it's very recent. Like I started listening to this style just because my friends were listening to this guy, Bad Bunny and all these guys. So they're more into trap, which they got it from the United States. Obviously, it's like a copy of whatever is happening here in the trap
Yeah,
style.
I haven't heard them. I haven't heard anybody. I mean, it's too soon, but I haven't heard anybody evolve trap into a real Latin touch.
Yeah, no.
They're just taking a regular American soundtrack
And doing the same.
just in Spanish.
Yeah. And then I have Techno Cumbia, which is Techno Cumbia is a mixture between cumbia and techno music,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool.
It's like electronic dance music. Cut up. You take cumbia, you cut it up, and you make electronic dance music out of it.
Mm-hmm. So it's pretty cool because I've seen dances, and then the dances are cool. and it's a cool fusion. Like it's different. The cumbia, and then you have the electronic and techno. So it's pretty cool. So these are my Latino style music.
Before we run out of time here, I'm going to add flamenco.
Yeah, flamenco. But flamenco,
Okay,
the
go.
thing about flamenco is that it's not Latino, it's from Spain.
Exactly. But
it's Hispanic. It is Hispanic.
And if you go to Latin American countries, you will hear this, and you will hear it mixed. You'll hear a mixture. You'll take some influences from it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to add that in there. Latin American, you got to add tango.
I know.
You always forget
Tango.
tango.
And boleros too. Boleros is part of Latin American history, and every time you go to a Latin American restaurant or event, they're gonna sing at least one bolero. Even the flamenco, we know a flamenco band, Los Cintrón, and they will sing boleros in their show.
So I think another genre you might have missed out,
What?
Latin pop, Latin rock.
That's true, and I love it. Wow.
Kalak. Sometimes the stuff is right in front of you and you don't even see it.
You know what? It's that I went for the more cultural, the things that are not that relatable to the United States, or that in the United States they will not do it.
True. But you have some big artists that you follow. You love
I
Shakira.
love Shakira. I
Juanes.
love Juanes. I love Luis Fonsi.
What?
I love Pablo Alborán. He's not Latin American, but he's from Spain, Hispanic. Yeah, it's true. You're right.
I think also from Colombia, I always like the Los Aterciopelados.
That's kind of pop rock
band from Colombia, and they mixed in their music. They mixed a lot of Latin influences, and
yeah.
they kind of did their own thing. So that's kind of cool. Trying to think if we missed anything else. What about Música de los Andes? Andean music.
Mm-hmm.
That's really good. It's got like more like that that Inca sound, that the flutes, the pan flute.
Oh, yeah, like that's Peru. From Peru.
Yeah.
A little bit of Chile too.
And then while we're down there, I could think of growing up vallenatos from Colombia. Vallenatos are a big
Carlos
thing.
Vives. Hello, shout out to Carlos Vives.
And Música de los Llanos.
Yeah.
You know, the guitar, the fast playing guitar, fast plucking, a harp from Colombia.
Como un seis chorreado de Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So that wraps this section up. Thank you, Carla, for your list.
You're welcome.
It was a lot of hard work, a lot of genres that you threw in there.
#cultural talk.
wanted me to teach you, right? This is street reality.
Hablando español.
Sí, vamos a hablar español.
Speaking Spanish. Speaking Spanish. Carla, what are the words?
Okay, comenzamos con, we're starting with dibujo.
Dibujo. Dibujo is drawing.
Yes.
I know that word.
Really?
I'm good.
You're good. Okay, next one. Next one will be papel.
Papel sounds weird. I could throw an American off.
Papel means paper.
Paper. Paper is papel.
Paper, papel.
Okay.
It's not that complicated.
No, it's not complicated, but it doesn't sound.
But
It doesn't
the
sound like paper.
Yeah. Es papel. Okay. Then we're going into lápiz.
Ah, lápiz.
Lápiz. Así se supone que se diga lápiz.
Okay. No. Lápiz. Okay, lápiz.
And that's pencil.
Lápiz, and then lápiz is pencil, pen, esfero. Esfero
No
is
es
pen.
un esfero.
Esfero
Okay, this
pen.
is okay. We can start this. We can start the discussion now. This argument.
Pen,
People,
pen,
if
people,
you
pen.
guys are listening to this podcast right now and you're on Instagram right now, go and comment on the latest photo
For episode
for
5.
episode 5.
Latest photo.
latest post for episode 5 and comment what is the correct way to call a pen
In Spanish.
in Spanish. Is it esfero or bolígrafo? Esfero or bolígrafo? Just write it down. Write it on the last post for episode 5 on our Instagram. Write it bolígrafo or esfero.
I mean, it's obviously esfero, but let's keep
Okay,
going.
let's keep going. And then next word is imaginar.
Imagine. Imaginar.
Imagine all the people.
Imaginar.
Imaginar. Then
Okay.
I can think of maybe los barriles de bomba, which would be drums. Barriles, because it can be
But barril is barrel.
for as an instrument.
I mean, that's what they're calling the instrument barril, but there's drum, which is tambor,
Mm-hmm.
and el barril. You guys might have nicknamed it barril, but barril is literally barrel.
Well, but we're using it as
Exactly.
an instrument, right?
Igual como el cajón.
Yeah.
Cajon, that people is it's very popular right now. El cajon. Cajon just means box, right? Just
Mhm.
means
Yeah.
square
Yeah.
box, a wood box. What about things like so we were talking about music, so what about violin?
Violín.
Violín.
Mhm.
What about
Guitar.
guitarra?
Guitarra.
Guitar and guitarra. It's just that's where you gotta do those heavy R's.
Mhm.
Guitarra.
In Spanish is guitarra, but in English is guitar.
Another one that gets that kind of translation very commonly in music is conga. In English, they say conga,
Mm-hmm.
but in Spanish, it's
Conga.
conga. So it's just an accent. So those are words that are spelled the same and everything, just a different accent will give you a different thing.
What about bongo?
Bongo.
Yeah.
People say bongos.
Yeah. In Spanish is bongo. Or
Bongo.
bongo.
Bongo. What about when we were talking about Mexican music?
Mm-hmm.
Rancheros. They play el bajo. Rancheras, they play el bajo, right? The bass.
Yeah.
So in
the
English, bass.
Yeah.
Spanish,
Bajo.
bajo. What about maracas? Same.
Maracas is maracas. Yeah.
All right. I think that's it.
Yeah,
We're good. You guys now are speaking Spanish. No excuses.
you are. And remember to write bolígrafo or esfero.
Oh, please. All right, so that wraps up episode 5. And we are going to be talking now. What is coming up on episode 6? Use your eyes. First portion is going to be drawing what you see, drawing from observation. I think we touched on that subject in today's episode, but next episode we'll be discussing more figure drawing, and why do I enjoy figure drawing? What I draw from observation.
Yeah. And then on Cultural Talk, we're going to be talking about dancing to Spanish music. How did we learn it and how it relates to our lives?
And as always, at the end, the last portion will be Hablando Español.
Yes, vamos a hablar español.
So don't forget, #Cortesnyc Livestream. Follow us on Instagram. Shout out to everybody who's already responding to our post. We will be launching this shortly. This is episode 5.